Thank you everyone so much for coming to this poetry reading with poets from the Poetry Society of Virginia. It's titled Virginia Voices, and it's part of the Centennial celebrations of the Poetry Society of Virginia. That being said, I'm going to hand us over to the president of the PSV, Terry Cox-Joseph, to say a few words about the presentation before we begin the reading.
Thank you. And you just said everything I was going to say. It's basically that this is the centennial year. And so this will be a centennial presentation. And I'm also welcoming everyone on behalf of Kathleen Decker, who is the Eastern Region Vice President. She couldn't be here, and I will be reading one of her poems. Please join us in May at our Centennial Festival at the library, main library in Richmond. And everything's online. And here we are. So we'll get started. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terry. So first, I'm going to introduce Derek Kannemeyer. Derek Kannemeyer's poetry and prose have appeared in dozens of print and online publications, from Fiction International to Rolling Stone. His most recent books include the Light Verse and Animal Trivia Collection, A Beta Bestiary, 2022, the novel The Memory Addicts, 2022, the poetry collection Mutt Spirituals, 2021, the 4-act Play of Gilgamesh, 2019, and Blue Nib won the winning entry in the 2018 Blue Nib Chapbook Contest. Kirkus Reviews named his photography nonfiction book Unsay Their Names, about the fall from grace of the Lost Cause statuary of Richmond, Virginia, where he lives, one of the 100 best indie books of 2022. 50 of its photographs were the fall 2021 featured exhibition at the Virginia Black History Museum. Derek's website is petalridge.com. Derek.
Hello, I've just been joined by my cat. For some reason over the years, I've written maybe 20 or 30 poems with the word April in the title. And because it's April, I thought maybe I should read a few of them. And I'm going to go sequentially by date. For the Fools of April, about April the 1st. The 1st of April is the day we remember what we are, the other 364, and that is Mark Twain. We are gathered in the comfort of this truth, that we are blunderers together. So you're the weird spawn of weird people? Well, hey, me too. The king or queen of screwing up royally? Hail Coronation Day. For today, we are given license to trip over shoelaces, to take humble pie in the face, to link arms and sing clown car vows as the Fools of April rollicking to the roll call, to own to it. Idiot, blockhead, imbecile, ass, cretin, dunderhead, dingbat, dolt. Simpleton, dimwit, dipstick, dunce, goober, goon, doofus, dope. Dumbo, dum-dum, pea-brain, clod, fathead, airhead, moron, flake, half-wit, twit, putz, lame-brain, chowderhead, sucker, sap, ninny, turkey, numbskull, chump, twerp, dork, bozo, coot, present, you bet, howdy, here. Nincompoops all. Hooting and clouting each other about with our names noise like a cinema of stooges until the jeer is knocked from them, until the spite, with a whoopee cushion squawk, cries uncle, cries cousin, sister, human, friend, amen, alleluia. From April the 1st, I think I'll go to April the 6th. This is called Sally and April, and I say April the 6th because my wife and I met 50 years ago on April the 6th. And so I'm going to read Sally and April, which is actually set about 4 years later when we were living in Charlottesville. Now, as the lamps ignite again, dogwood and lilac, violets and azaleas, you bring out your white sundress and your pruning scissors to climb Kite Hill through leaf lilt and the streaming of shadows, capturing lights like a river. A string bag at your shoulder jiggles two kicked-off sandals, two wriggling fish. I hang back a little, the better to watch your legs as you climb. Where are you leading me now, among these wind-fanned forsythia and the scattered sparking of the buttercups? You turn and call. Over the rise, the cool stars are opening like mouths. And now I'm still going through sequentially in date, and I'm on to April the 9th. And this is for, oddly, well, I don't know if oddly, I suppose unsurprisingly, a lot of the April poems deal with specific dates and are elegies, and often elegies for poets. And one of my favorite poets was Edward Thomas, who died, who was killed in action on April the 9th, 1917 in Arras, France. One of his unfinished poems, which was, or unwritten poems, he just had this first line, a 12-syllable line written in his notebook, and he never got to write this poem, so I wrote it from his point of view. I never understood quite what was meant by God. That's the first line. He never wrote the poem, so here's my version of it. I never understood quite what was meant by God. There was a face I strove too hard to see, I think, whose image my own was made in. His didn't blink, though, or flush like my schoolboy face with breath and blood, or idly entertain itself by pulling odd expressions, or snort so loud that with laughter the drink spilled out its nose. Or, not that I could picture, wink. It smiled, or it glared. It looked distantly sad. And what child needs such gods? Only when I gave up on him to footsore through a solitary world of clouds and willow herbs, where blackbirds sang and curled dipped bills of curlews dimpled the mud to sup, did ghosts of him rise from the dirt hollows. Welsh bogs, lovely with mist, hooted an orison of frogs. A Flanders rainfall, silvering the pitted mud, flushed a field's barbed lines with poppy's blood. I'm not measuring time, so I think I've definitely got time for one. But let's see. This I think we all have favorite poems which nobody else seems to like. This is one of mine, and I'm kind of a bit of a history freak. I like looking at little odd bits of history and writing poems about them, and this one I think is appropriate for today because tomorrow is the anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's death, and this poem, Laura in April, also called Pieta, Ford's Theatre, 1865, is about the actress Laura Keane. And let me read the epigraph, which is adapted from Wikipedia. Laura Keane's company was staging Our American Cousin as John Wilkes Booth entered the presidential box, shot Abraham Lincoln and fled. It was Laura Keane on Good Friday, April the 14th, 1865, who cradled the president's head in her lap as he lay dying. The blood-stained sleeve cuff of her costume is on display at the National Museum of American History in Washington, D.C. Now, that's all true, but it's not certain that it actually happened. Some sources question the authenticity of the garment and question the authenticity of the legend, which is suggested that Laura Keane made up for publicity reasons. We just don't know. And interestingly, her birthday was Mary, and that's what this poem plays off as a kind of pieta. Her birth name was Mary Moss. Laura Keane was an invention. What choice remained but the stage? The girl's father in penal Australia, his name branding them with its lash. What chance but in a new name and remarriage to the theatre? A short bio, 2 decades on the stage in London, New York, Baltimore, founding her own theatre in San Francisco, in New York, starring and managing the great Laura Keane. And the audiences came and came. New York, the Elves, a record 50 shows. London, the Colleen-born, 200. And in DC, transferred from the house that bore her name, the Laura Keene, to the Fords, our American cousin, to which a president came to see the famed Laura Keene. When Wilkes Booth's gunshot stopped the show and the blood-soaked theater of an epoch called her into its wings, she flew from her own stage up to history stage through a milling and hollering crowd to take her mark. A scene in so theatrical a frame, the scale of it still tips. She kneels, she acts, haloed or human. To cradle a martyred man, she weeps, in Laura's or in Mary's name. I think I've used up my 10 minutes. Thank you very much, and I'll pass it on to somebody else.
Thank you so much, Derek. That was wonderful. So much. Thank you. I now introduce Terry Cox-Joseph, who is the president of the Poetry Society of Virginia and a former newspaper reporter and editor. She has one poetry chapbook, Between Then and Now, by Finishing Line Press. From 1994 to 2004, she was the coordinator for the annual Christopher Newport University Writers Conference and Contest. An award-winning poet, she has been published in Northern Virginia Review, Allegro, the Lawrence House, UK, and Chiron Review, among others. A graduate of Minneapolis College of Art and Design, she displays and sells her work at On the Hill Gallery in Yorktown, Pop Shop by Joe Louise, and other places. Terry's family, pets, and the waterfront provide a constant resource for her writing and art, as well as an unremitting source of income for Stanley Steamer. She often works long into the night with only chocolate to sustain her. Terry.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to start with a poem about my son who was rear-ended last week, and it's called Connected. The jag of emotions rips me like the jagged jig of a saw come loose when my adult son calls to say he crashed, rear-ended, spun like a top. Beyond the bluff and gruff and hustle, he still needs us. Tethered like a toddler, holding hands, safe. And this is also a family poem. This is about my daughter and her husband. New ritual. New at this, our newlyweds ask if we prefer our house or theirs, an hour's drive. We'd be happy either way, just to see them, inhale their joy, their energy. Easier to host than to travel. We understand that. They stopped at the market this morning, everything fresh, crunch of paper grocery bags bulging with fish, tomatoes, and herbs. Hugs, murmurs, laughter. Setting up the high chair, putting out ice water, forgetting napkins. A glass of wine served, feet propped, a candle lit. Applesauce and sippy cup, baby's wine pairing, tactile, tasty. In the kitchen, they move together like dancers. He, taller, lifting the pot of boiling water, draining the pasta. She, scooping sauce, spooning it over angel hair and salmon. Basil and onions, extra oregano. Clink of utensils, supper served with casual air of youth. Flip of long hair over her shoulder, flap of dish towel over his wrists. They are light years ahead of us, but their tenderness tastes like love with every bite. the shore of your spirit. Walk the shore of your spirit like a lake. Absorb the calm, the glint, the purity. Let it churn with the storm, then rest at sunrise. Let it reflect the sky, the tree, the sun sparkle, because they have their own spirits, unaware as they are of their essence, but fully enough to gift us with their beauty. Walk the spirit of your shore like a temple. Admire the quality, the gleam, the clarity. Let it learn your ways, then rise at dawn. Let it reflect your sky, your limbs, your sparkle, because you have your own spirit, mindful as you are of its essence, vital enough to gift all of us with your beauty. Surrender to a saucer magnolia. Saucer magnolia, everybody calls them tulip magnolias. They're a little different. They have pink and kind of purpley flowers, and they're huge. And when the petals fall, the whole grass and yard and driveway look like you're walking in a fairyland of pink. Something soft this way lines the path to my front door. Fresh shoots of zoysia grass cluttered with pink petals cupped like hands. Startlingly light angel's wings shed like second skin, scented as lightly as the heavens. April embrace, heady with love and lungs filled with life. Stay, stay forever. And I need never leave this earth. And now, in her absence, I will introduce Kathleen Decker, the Vice President of Poetry Society. She has a book called Nature, Love, and the Psychiatrist, and she's a retired psychiatrist. Music. Gentle piping of the, piccolo echoes the insistent melodies of morning birds, plaintive yet powerful. It intrigues me with a life I have never known. Feelings I cannot imagine, mysteries too simple to comprehend. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Terry. That was just beautiful. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now I introduce Bill Glose, who is a combat veteran and former paratrooper, the author of 5 poetry collections, 1 book of fiction, and hundreds of magazine articles. Glose was named the Daily Press Poet Laureate in 2011 and featured by NPR on the Writer's Almanac in 2017. His most recent book of poetry, Postscript to War, was a finalist for the Library of Virginia Book Award. Other honors include the F. Scott Fitzgerald Short Story Award and the Dateline Award for Excellence in Journalism. His poems have appeared in numerous journals, including the Missouri Review, Rattle, Poet Lore, Narrative Magazine, and The Sun. His website, billglose.com, includes a page of helpful information for writers. Bill.
Hello there, everyone, and thank you for having me, Adele. I'm going to open with a poem that's set at the Yorktown battlefield, and it's called Photo Op. So I'm going to begin with the photo that actually comes from that photo op. So this is my good friend Dawn as she's running with a plane-shaped kite across the Yorktown battlefield. So, and also in this poem, since you can't see it on the page, there's one place where I mention my Canon, and I'm talking about my Canon camera, not the cannons on the battlefield. This is photo op. The waning sun strikes cannons atop Yorktown battlefield's redoubts, throws long shadows across a grassy sward where tourists cluster around placards in reverence. I don't point my cannon at iron-barreled tools of revolution or the zigzag split-rail fence forming a skirmish line beside the gravel parking lot. I aim Instead, at dawn, as she runs, laughing, towing her new red kite like bumper-tied cans behind a couple just married. Shaped like a biplane with a fluttering tail, the kite never rises more than 5 feet off the ground, corkscrewing in dawn's wake as she races back and forth, chasing the fog-wreathed memory of how easy it had been in pastures of our youth. Every remembered whim capturing air to climb into clouds, trying like hell to carry us along. And this next one, I like to go on morning walks, and on one of the walks at a neighborhood near mine, I saw a beautiful family scene that I got to step into for a few minutes. So this is called Advice We Give to the Ones We Love. I met a man this morning in the shade of a poplar, his 2 sons beside him, one hugging his leg to shield himself from the dangers of our world. Abutting their swath of green was the flat, gray asphalt of a parking lot, where a girl with bow-tied plates protruding from her pink helmet pedaled circles on a shaky bike. Just her second time, the father said, voice tremulous, and I could see their many laps together, her pumping toward the future, him trotting behind, one hand on the seat, spooning out hard-earned wisdoms, knowing soon he must let go. Today, he grimaced as she nearly toppled on a too-quick turn, shocked, oh, of her lips swallowing teeth. When she balanced and found her line, he released a shudder of breath. Not so fast, yelled the older boy, brave enough to stand on his own, his blue helmet and bike jumbled on grass like spectators outside the sun's spotlight. I know, she shrieked, pedaling hard on the straightaway, then gliding to take the next corner slow. I'm just going to do one more. This one, I thought I would end with a little bit of humor. This is called Admitting My Faults. Were I wiser, I'd buy ice cream in single servings, avoiding boxes of individually wrapped cones that call to me like harems, promising worlds of earthly delights. If I just strip off their clothes and set to work on them with my tongue. One by one, they race down the rabbit hole of my throat, leaving nothing but empty cardboard container too small to hold my shame. I bury their wrappers deep in the bin to hide them like cars of pawn shop patrons who park at the rear of the building. The mental picture of this moment, me hovering over the trash with chocolate smeared around my mouth and chin, is enough to deflect me from that last aisle in frozen foods, the one whose windows are always fogged by shoppers standing at open doors, leering at tubs of butter-churned sin. But the embargo never lasts. If an interviewer posed that question that makes so many job applicants squirm, what is your worst fault? I would name neither my sweet tooth nor my voracious appetite, minor henchmen as foibles go. I would offer instead my inability to pass up a bargain, no matter how ill-advised the purchase, which is why the prow of my cart is sailing the groceries back wall, towing me in its wake like a water skier struggling to stay aloft, powerless to swerve from the bow-ripping shoals I know lie up ahead. And though the lighthouse of my memory illuminates the jagged rocks, there is a sale today. Nestle combo packs. Buy one, get one free. And all I can see are sirens humming lullabies in repose, alabaster skin as pure as vanilla.
Thank you so much. Love the humor. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I thought it'd be good to throw in a few laughs there, even at my own expense.
Now I introduce Luisa Igloria, who is the author of Maps for Migrants and Ghosts, co-winner of the 2019 Crab Orchard Open Poetry Prize, published 2020 by Southern Illinois University Press. The Buddha Wonders If She Is Having a Midlife Crisis, 2018, 12 other books, and 4 chapbooks. Originally from Baguio City, she makes her home in Norfolk, Virginia, where she is the Louis I. Jaffe and University Professor of English and Creative Writing at Old Dominion University's MFA Creative Writing Program. She also leads workshops for and is a member of the board of the Muse Writers Center in Norfolk. Luisa is the 20th Poet Laureate of the Commonwealth of Virginia, 2020 to 2022, and as I understand it, still serving. Is that correct at the moment? Emerita. During her term, the Academy of American Poets awarded her a 2021 Poet Laureate Fellowship. And you can visit her online at luisaigloria.com. Luisa.
Thanks so much, Adele, and thank you for this wonderful opportunity to join my friends from the Poetry Society of Virginia. I have decided to read mostly new poems. Some of you know that I keep a daily writing practice. I've done so for the last 12 years and 4 months, something. And it's really something that gives me a lot of pleasure. It's not obligation, but I go there to work things out for myself, and my favorite means of processing what the world throws me is poetry. So I'll read some of those. And this one is because there's been so much talk lately about AI and Chat GPT and you know the rest. So this poem is called Deus Ex Machina. Even the whales were invited to the inauguration of the machine. One of them said, I am tired of sorrowing with my own voice, with my own blue heart wanting to beach on the strand. I am tired of making recordings that no one translates with any accuracy, or at the very least, into flowers. The herring wanted to keep their sleek gray dinner jackets instead of simmering in glass jars until their flesh wrinkled. True hopelessness is when there is no future to anticipate other than one delivered on tiny pieces of dry toast, borne on silver trays as small talk circulates in a hall. Perhaps the machine is also responsible for that kind of piped-in music. Once a king put his prisoners in a brazen bull. A fire built underneath it produced cries of anguish which never reached human ears. Instead, that sound was heard as ravishing. A player piano, a program, a score written for an empty orchestra. And this next poem still has a sort of, well, this one has a sort of environmental theme, an eco-poetic theme. It's called Ode to the Never Ending. The universe says you'll get smacked with a lesson as many times as it takes for you to learn it. If that's so, what lesson could possibly be in this tiny, annoying hair that keeps growing back in the same spot on the right side of your chin? You stand on tiptoe to get a better angle at the mirror. Tweezers in hand, you pull it out, marveling at how a small irritation commands total absorption. A week later, it's back. Nagging feeling, indeterminate itch. In Virginia Beach, 4 dead humpback whales have washed up on the shore since the beginning of the year. You could say they are also a kind of lesson that hasn't been learned. Necropsies show injuries consistent with vessel strikes in waters thick with ship traffic. If the world is ending, each cetacean body that perishes on sand is a fallen leaf, a wound bled open in the middle of a horizon of false starts. We keep saying there's time. The window's still open until it's not. I was debating on which poem to read next, and I think, again, because I feel like there is so much we need to address in the world, all the things that are happening around us, I think I will read this poem, which I wrote at the beginning of the year, shortly after another wave of violence was directed at the AAPI community, and it goes on. The loneliest country in the world. This is not a country for the old or the young. Opportunity and abundance, poorly made promises that break before they come clattering off conveyor belts that rot before they can be loaded into baskets. The young are names inside foil hearts, tacked on a schoolroom wall, outlines on the floor where they crouched and bent their heads to the linoleum heart of this country. Don't say apple or flag or Thanksgiving. This country is becoming the loneliest country in the world. It is the smell of floors bleached after a rain of blood, the blind heat of hatred strung like lights in dance halls, incandescent as bullets boiled in a crucible of darkness. Just like in Stockton and Watsonville, the old wash the dirt of farms from their hands, put on their finest threads. If this was their only defiance, let it have been the moon they skated on, the pulse of a little joy that throbbed in their temples before the end. And I will read just one more poem. This is from one of my previously published books, and it makes reference to a very famous woodblock print of Hokusai, the great wave off the coast of Kanagawa, where you have this giant tsunami-looking wave and this tiny, tiny boat underneath it. The poem is called Perfectibility. Hokusai believed in the slow perfectibility of forms, in the way after 75 years or more, the eye might finally begin to understand the quality of a single filament. Vein by vein, the green curve of a leaf spirals from overhanging branches to the water below. Water that cups and gathers flecks of foam and a necklace of tiny fishing boats, their bleached hulls almost indistinct in the hollow of a wave off the coast of Kanagawa. So it is in this peripheral universe that occasionally we look up from our labors to see the swirling current, the distant mountain, the scroll of birds, our sensible garments with fraying sleeves, sprouting vines, and soaked through with the same indigo ink. The water writes what it erases, then writes again. So much of nothing, so much of everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luisa. Your work is just so powerful and important. I really appreciate it. Next, I am introducing Dr. Carolyn Kreiter-Foronda, who served as Poet Laureate of Virginia from 2006 to 2008. She holds a BA from the University of Mary Washington and MEd, MA, and PhD degrees from George Mason University, where she received the university's first doctorate, an Outstanding Academic Achievement and Service Award, and a letter of recognition for quality research from the Virginia Educational Research Association for her dissertation. In 2007, both universities gave her the Alumna of the Year award. She has co-edited 3 anthologies, co-authored a poem play, and published 9 books of poetry, including The Embrace, winner of the International Art and Literature, the Mary Lynn Kotz Award. She has received 5 grants from the Virginia Commission for the Arts, the Ellen Anderson Award, first place awards from the Chesapeake Bay branch of the National League of American Pen Women, a resolution of appreciation from the Virginia Board of Education for her service as Poet Laureate, an Edgar Allan Poe Poetry Award, and others. Carolyn.
Thank you so much, Adele, for inviting me to be here with such accomplished poets. I am thoroughly enjoying this event. And I want to go back to my past in southwestern Virginia, where I grew up in the mountains, and I still love to go to this region. Mountains. For as long as I live, I will love mountains rising out of villages, holding on to sun, threading light. I will love them on a country's border, stepping into wind free for miles. If someone mentions the Himalayas or Kilimanjaro, I will think of men who have climbed these peaks, touched the sky, and turned lovely as stone. A comfort not to think of death in the valleys, sunlight pouring over plains, giving back what is theirs. May the snows come. It is beautiful to love mountains, to have lived in the sanctuary of ancient slopes and felt mountains glide into silence, to go on loving them in words. One of the best parts of my life has been teaching. I love my students and I still keep up with them. And for 25 years, I took them with me to Europe. And on 17 occasions, we visited France. And in the southern part of France, some of you may have been to the hills of Les Baux. And I'm going to read a poem about this. Now, not everybody loves climbing up mountains like I do. So you'll see what happened during this journey. Friends, you did not care to climb the hills to Les Baux. So alone, I take in this view, clear skies to the south, and beneath them Arles, Sainte Marie de la Mer. Here the troubadours found the source of words, sang warm nights to women. Their homes and ruins glow in the Provence moon, while music pours from stars, dreamers in love with this city, its castle walls floating. Poets, wherever you rest, sleep in this alluring light, as I will sleep one day, calmer for having climbed these hills, where the air taken into the body feels incandescent, and once released, turns to song. My first trip to South America was to Peru, where I visited Sacred Valley and Machu Picchu. And I've just always felt a connection to South America. And of course, I ended up marrying my dear husband, who was born in Chile and grew up in Peru. Something of myself. I awake to rain. Listening to the cadence takes me back to a country where there is no rain in winter. Sun anointing Peruvian fields, patches of corn glistening. In the sacred valley, I find something of myself in Incas shouldering bundles of sticks, their bare feet calloused by land. At 10,000 feet, something of myself in Indians tilling slopes and proud. They tell me I am a stranger because I was not born here. Though I speak little Quechua, I am no stranger to flute calls and dancers. Their rhythms lured me as a child, our house alive with El Condor Pasa. Far from the coastline, I find my childhood suspended in the blend of rock and violet peaks, in eucalyptus leaves, in lingering Scotch broom. Images set loose each time I read Neruda's Alturas de Machu Picchu. There is something of home in climbing these sculpted terraces. At the top, I scoop up a handful of soil, taste its grain, its warmth feeding my hunger for the hillsides of Western Virginia, where as a child I planted corn and potatoes. Though at home there is no southern sky, each night stars spill their legends, and in all that brightness, who can tell north from south? In Pisac, in Ollantaytambo, in Machu Picchu, I hear the bell call of rain. Now, I want to read a couple of poems about the moon. You will hear or notice the moon in many of my poems. It's something that's so nourishing for me. And I think what happens is sometimes we get so busy, caught up in work and other things that need to be done around the house, that we don't take time to enjoy what's right in front of us. And since I live in a rural area, I take time, like many of you, to go walking. Blood moon. To see the full moon turn copper, drive to the end of a country road, to a broad-mouthed bay where darkness scatters stars like lit tin across fields. Wait until night dips like a tango, the steady hum of porch lamps forgotten in the wailing of hounds. When the nip of chill mimics Tierra Lira, pull umbral shadows closer until Cherokee harvest comes to you, Choctaw blackberry, hunters, blood moon, brick red. Let celestial wines fill you with the power of tides, swelling in channels, inlets, coves, the rust red of a fox ardent as she laps a stream's lifeblood. Be the terracotta disc fading to orange, orange to reclaimed white. Dangle your feet over a dock's edge as the lingering trace of Rome disappears, moon still visible in an unspoiled glow, and you in no hurry at all. And the last poem that I'm going to read is entitled In the Comfort of Light. And as some of you know, this was recently published in the Polaris trilogy, Poems for the Moon. And in 2024, the anthology will travel to the moon on a NASA flight. Now, this is a simultaneous poem, but with simultaneous poems, I spend a lot of time revising, always have. I just love it, the process of rethinking. But you have to be able to read the simultaneous poem as one voice. And so I'm going to read it to you that way today. In the Comfort of Light. As a disaster takes hold of the world, what is it like when you feel despondent to live a life stalled? What is it like to yearn for a web of stars, search for a prophetic omen circling the sky, for moonlight floating overhead, a heavenly veil of comfort? There is no better healing for the spirit. There is no better cure than light's serene reflection over a river's silvery surface, than sun flooding moon enlightening the flamboyance of waves, soothing as radiant gleams flicker on and off, their jubilant dance ethereal. Each evening, as soon as a row of candles sparkle and shine, I take a much needed stroll for the soul. Come with me to the creek as the moon and stars speak. I listen to their harmonious trill where cardinals flit from branch to branch, resounding like warblers' songs. Lost in the wash of light, I let go, stroll down paths of darkness, bask in the cuddle of beams, surrender in night's thrall, seek comfort in skies, divine radiance. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. That was just so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
So now I'm introducing Nathan M. Richardson, who's a published author, performance poet, and Frederick Douglass historian. His poetry collections include Likeness of Being, 21 Imaginary T-shirts, and The 7 Last Poems of an Unarmed Citizen. Books featuring Nathan's success story include You Can Do That, Amazing People with Amazing Jobs by David Messick, and You Don't Want Success, Demolishing Fears and Excuses by Miko Marsh. He is now in the 9th year of the Frederick Douglass Speaking Tour, a living history performance in which he captures completely the physical and spiritual essence of the former slave, writer, orator, and abolitionist Frederick Douglass. This living history series has produced film credits with the National Park Service, Alabama Public Television. Nathan's rendition of Frederick Douglass Honors the Unknown Loyal Dead was nominated for Best Short Film at the 2022 I Will Tell International Film Festival. You can find more about Nathan Richardson and his work at scpublishing.com. Nathan. And we're going to share the picture. That's your first poem that you're reading, is that right?
Just a quick word to everyone who is reading here today. I'm definitely honored, and as a matter of fact, Derek poems on April. I've never written but one poem about April, and that's a haiku, which goes, April's last haiku ended the month much wiser than the fool began. So hats off to Derek and his April poems. So I'm going to read 3 poems, and the first has the image, so you can put up the image.
Great. Just 1 second. We'll get that right up.
So this poem, actually, I am following after Zora Neale Hurston, who you all might be familiar with, especially her book, Their Eyes Are Watching God. But she was a cultural anthropologist and spent a lot of time in the South collecting the songs, the poems, the stories of people, indigenous people in the South. And one of her other books that is quite notable, you might want to read it, is a book called Mules and Men. And so I was recently revisiting that book and stories that I was told by my father and his generation. My father passed back in July. And so in this poem, I'm following after Zora Neale Hurston, Dickie, Johnny, RT, and Kenny Jr. They were all the last sharecroppers of my family, of mules and men. It took mules and men to build this country, to carve it out of tree stands and rocky land, of settlers who laid claim to land, who settled what had already been settled and shared their crops, but not the land. Took men from sunup to sundown, walking behind mules and plows through clouds of dust, over clods of clay and mountains of mule manure. Every day at noon, Causey Griffin would stop us for lunch. Time to give that mule a break, he'd say. Get your lunch waiting on the back porch and bring out a fresh mule to end the day. Never a consideration that we might be tired too. And then along came the tractor, an invention of divine intervention to ease the burden of mules and men. But the notion of tractor seemed to make Causey mad. He hounded me all day about how it was a cotton-picking shame that me and his mule was working so slow. He didn't understand how 2 men and 4 mules couldn't keep up with Ben Copeland's brand new 30 horsepower Massey Ferguson. I can't afford to buy no goddamn tractor, he'd say. I went home and told Daddy that Causey wouldn't need no goddamn tractor if he would work his mules as hard as he worked his men. Daddy's response to me, boy, you know more than a mule know, and his head's bigger than yours. The other problem with Causey was he was always slow paying you the money he owed. $1.50 a day can dig a hole in your budget faster than a grubbing hoe, and I was already 3 days in escrow. Next morning, I asked Mr. Causey when I was getting paid. He said, tomorrow, if you and that mule can find some get up and go, y'all still got 1.5 acres left to plow, you know. As soon as he turned his back, I decided not to finish another row, tied that mule to a tree, and left the mule and the money on the farm. And that was the last time a mule ever farted in my face. So that poem definitely revisited some memories of stories I was told by my cousins, my uncle, my dad. And it actually, profanity, a little bit of profanity was in there. I'm not a big fan of profanity in poetry. And as a matter of fact, I try to teach my students, my slam poets, not to use it as much as they do. But in this case, the character demanded that I use the profanity. So with that said, I'll segue into a poem that I actually use to teach my students or the youth that about the use of profanity in poetry. From the intent that in this day and time, we have lost, seems to me, we've lost track of what profane really is. I mean, if you're going to drop the F-bomb, there are words much more startling than the F-bomb. I mean, if you want to really startle somebody, if you want to, what is profane? What about the word fentanyl? What about famine? What about flint? What about firearms? I mean, if these words are not profane and they don't insult you, then maybe you need to recalibrate what profane really is. So this poem is called On Profanity. Would you rather have a duffel bag full of 4-letter hand grenades or minds like nuclear reactors, mixing a million radioactive words in infinite combinations, not just shocking crowds in small concentrations, but stimulating minds in all the constellations? Poets are the bees of humanity, pollinating the growth of mankind, So untwist your tongue's taste buds and find the reason bees produce honey and not salt. The solution has nothing to do with fault. And this poem is not about blame or fame. We all leave this world the same way we came, and in between, the difference we make shouldn't put our ancestors to shame. So I ask you again, would you rather have a duffel bag full of 4-letter hand grenades or minds like nuclear reactors? Because in the aftermath of a nuclear blast, you'd want to be the one in control rather than cursing the masters who stole and made knowledge the new commodities bought and sold for souls. Now, don't mistake this for a rhetorical question. It's historical in every context. Misinterpret the metaphorical content, and you could quickly find yourself lost. Exhaust your vocabulary, and it could cost you the critical seconds needed to decide the meaning of a word on one hand, and on the other, the writer's intent. Let's just say you were sent a problem to solve. Somebody asked you to produce a word without a vowel. And here you go off in a tangent looking for something foul, like how to say the F word in French. Coach gonna have you sitting on the porch bench, spitting obscenities like you got a stammer, like you ain't finished grammar school. Think you gonna take on some serious poets? You gonna get hammered, fool. Poets don't get licensed to break the rules until they know the rules. If you gonna silence the meter, you gotta validate the verse, parlay the pun, and perfect personification. You gotta know the etymology of the poetology. Okay, I've been wasting my time and I'm through. I could have written in haiku and in 17 syllables been done with you. But let's reconsider the question from a more simplistic view. Would you rather shine constant like the sun or be the broken light that flashes? Would you rather have curls on your tongue or a mouth full of ashes? And so, yeah, I wrote that poem for a group of poets that I was coaching back in 2012 in Chicago, and I think they got the message. And so I'll end with another poem that I wrote for my students, which I'm always trying to get them to use time, space in their poetry because, you know, what is not said is as important as what is said. You want to leave space for the reader to imagine. You don't want to step on the reader's imagination. And so this poem is called A Pause Between Notes. I am the pause between notes, between the first breath and the utterance, between the last word and the penultimate, the valley after the ridge, the rhythmic value of song, between words, between sentences, the stutter, the staccato, the synapse between question and answer, brush and stroke, the space where interpretation becomes art, where yin becomes yang at the intersection of darkness and light, the ethos, the matter between what matters, the last real number between positive and negative. I am zero. I am the Seshura, the Shabbat, the meditation, the prayer, the noticeable silence, the irony of noise, between heartbeats, between lovers, after the hug, before the kiss, the look, a stare between enemies. I am a ceasefire, the space between planets. I am peace. I am Mars, Venus, man, woman, a short leap, a light year. I am fear of consequence. I am the hope that even the inconsequential has value. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nathan. I love the wit and the insight and I mean, the incredibly powerful imagery. And I just want to thank all the poets so much for the incredible words you shared today. I love all of your work so much, honestly. I'm just so grateful to you all for coming and joining us at
Thank
the
you.
library. You made my dreams come true. I don't know if, I mean, we're past time, but I have a really, really short poem of mine I could read if anyone wants. Okay. This is from my poetry book, Halloween Hearts. And if you want to know more about me, you can find me at gardnercastle.com. It's Gardner. But this is called Home. It's after Alone by Edgar Allan Poe. From Dad's last breath, I've wandered, ghost in my own life. His eyes the most I manifest. The cord to heart snapped clean. I float above the chart of flattened life, topography of love reduced. I am not free to grieve. My thread drags in the dust. Gold Ariadne changed to rust. Untethered, numb, lightheaded, cold, I drift through drizzle, forfeit soul to tramp through hell in bloody boots, to squat in dirt, chew bitter roots, pulled from the grave where Daddy lies, his suit as blue as autumn skies. We feared the flood, laid him to rest in double vault, love note at breast, eyes shut, horn rimmed, a rose still tart, in frozen hands, stiff as my heart, sealed tight against eternity, but with no doorway left for me, back in where Daddy lies, my only home beneath the skies. Thank you.
Thanks, Adele.
Thank you.
But anyway, it's not about me, it's about all of you. And I'm just so grateful to you all. And I'm going to be listening to this broadcast again. I hope that everyone enjoyed it, and we will be archiving the video on the library's Facebook page so everyone who wasn't able to attend live can still enjoy it. Thank you so much.